2,000?
Yeah.
Well, she must be in terrible shape.
Let's find out what the weather is. Hey, I tell you, the weather out here.
In 1995, Soupy Sales fell down a flight of broken stairs at the Emmy Awards. The injury never healed, and the infections kept coming back until the day he died. But that fall wasn't the tragedy that destroyed his life. Years earlier, he worked 11 hours every single day until his wife left him after 29 years. His sons barely knew him. One nearly died from cocaine. The other became what he called a professional junkie for decades. The man who made millions of kids laugh couldn't save his own family, and the truth is even worse than that. Milton Supman was born on January 8, 1926, in a small town called Franklinton, North Carolina. Back then, the town had only around 1,200 to 2,500 people. His parents, Irving and Sadie Supman, were Jewish immigrants. His father came from Hungary in 1894, and his mother was born in Baltimore in 1897 to Russian Jewish parents. They owned a small store called the Wonder Department Store, where they sold dry goods. Milton grew up as the only Jewish child in the whole town, surrounded by strict Baptists, which made him feel like an outsider from the very beginning. He had two older brothers. Leonard was born in 1918, and Jack came in 1920. There had also been another brother, but he died in 1916 as a baby. Milton's childhood was shaped by this isolation, and it would later show up in the way he did comedy. But the most troubling part of his early years was that his family's store sold the very white sheets used by the Ku Klux Klan for their robes. Soupy later joked that his father provided all the sheets needed by the local Ku Klux Klan, turning something horrifying into a dark joke. What made it worse was that the Klan hated Jews, so while they were being targeted, they were unknowingly helping the very people who despised them. That contradiction haunted Milton and helped shape how he dealt with hate by turning it into something he could laugh at. Around the age of 10, something happened that he never forgot. One day at the local movie theater, a black man in the segregated section was asked to leave because he was smoking. The manager, Mr. Brown, tried to remove him, but the man pushed him, and Brown fell and died. The man was arrested, but that same night, the Klan took him from jail and hung him from a telephone pole right in the middle of town. Milton saw it all. He said he could still picture the man's body, even the cigarette still hanging from his mouth. Later, some records said it might have actually happened back in 1919. But Milton believed what he saw, and it left a scar. Seeing something like that so young changed the way he saw the world forever. Then came the biggest blow. On September 23, 1931, when Milton was only 5, his father Irving died from an asthma attack. He was just 41 years old. Milton only had 2 memories of him. Once when he gave him a dime while he was heading to a picnic, and another time when his father simply said, "Hello, how are you?" And he replied, "I'm fine." That was all he had. His father was buried in Baltimore. Losing his dad that young made Milton feel alone in a way most people can't understand, and it planted the early seeds of why he always needed to be loved, laughed at, or noticed. And this happened right during the Great Depression, when everything was already falling apart for families across America. In 1934, when Milton was 8, his mother married a new man named Felix Goldstein. He sold pants from town to town across West Virginia, Kentucky, and Ohio. They all moved to Huntington, West Virginia, which had about 75,000 people. Sadie reopened her store there, and something unexpected happened. Felix became very close to Milton. Leonard, the oldest brother, said that Felix and Soupy were like best friends. Felix used to say, "Tell me jokes, entertain me," and Milton did. It was the beginning of him performing not for a crowd, but for someone he loved. Felix pushed him to chase entertainment instead of a regular job like his older brothers. Milton graduated high school in Huntington in 1944, and that's where he got his early sense of timing and humor. But tragedy didn't leave him alone for long. In 1950, Felix was killed in a car accident. Milton was devastated. He lost 12 pounds in just over a week. Losing 2 fathers like that, one as a child and one as a young man, left permanent cracks in his heart. Right after high school, he joined the Navy and served on the USS Randall. It was a huge transport ship used in the Pacific during World War II. On March 25, 1945, they reached Iwo Jima just days after the battle started. Soupy helped unload soldiers and take wounded ones to Guam, but while others were carrying stretchers, Soupy was also keeping the crew entertained. He used the ship's loudspeaker system to perform skits. That's when he invented his famous voice character, White Fang, using a scary dog sound from an old recording of The Hound of the Baskervilles. There were over 2,000 men on the ship, and he gave them something to laugh about while everything around them was deadly serious. That same ship was later used in atomic bomb tests at Bikini Atoll, making it one of the most unforgettable assignments in Navy history. After the war, Soupy returned to Huntington and did something most comedians never did. He got a master's degree in journalism from Marshall College. While studying from 1946 to 1948, he also worked at nightclubs doing stand-up, singing, and dancing to pay his tuition, which was around $200 a semester. During that time, he created more than 50 original routines. He was learning how to think fast, talk fast, and write fast. His journalism training helped him later write scripts and radio bits. After graduation, he started working at WHTN radio station, writing and hosting shows for $35 a week. He also performed on weekends at clubs for an extra $15 a night. That's how he built both his money and his name. On June 8, 1950, he married Barbara Fox. They stayed married for 29 years and had 2 sons, Tony and Hunt. Both of them later became famous rock musicians. Tony played bass, and Hunt played drums. They worked with David Bowie and Iggy Pop in a band called Tin Machine in the late 1980s. They also performed on big albums and went on world tours. Even though Soupy's TV work kept him busy with over 260 shows a year at his peak, the family stayed strong until they finally divorced on August 27, 1979. Barbara got around $500,000 in the divorce and some of the royalties from his TV work. Just months later, his son's success brought his name back into the spotlight again. Soupy's first big break in entertainment happened at WHTN Radio in 1950. He was spinning records during the day and cracking jokes at clubs at night. He called his radio show Soupy's Soda Shop, and it became such a hit that he was voted the most popular boy in high school, even though he had already graduated. His bits on the radio had music, comedy, and clever sketches. He was already building a style that later made him a TV legend. His wartime comedy shows on the Navy ship gave him the confidence to perform anywhere. Then in 1953, he moved to Detroit to work at WXYZ TV Channel 7. That move changed everything. He created a lunch hour show called 12 O'Clock Comics, later known as Lunch with Soupy Sales. It aired right when kids were home for lunch, and it was wild. He once even took the camera crew across the street to the library lawn to talk to random students, something nobody did back then. His show was all ad-libbed, no script. It had crazy energy. Frank Sinatra even asked to be hit with a pie on it. He made up characters like White Fang, the meanest dog, and Blacktooth, the sweetest, but you never saw their faces, just arms and paws from behind doors. It became the most loved show in Detroit. Just 2 months later, on November 10th, 1953, he started another show called Soupy's On. It aired late at night and focused on live jazz. Detroit had around 24 jazz clubs at the time, especially in Paradise Valley, before it was torn down in 1959. Soupy brought on legends like Miles Davis, Duke Ellington, Billie Holiday, Charlie Parker, and Louis Armstrong. Miles Davis appeared 6 times, often staying at the Bluebird Inn. Soupy thought his show kept jazz alive in the city. Artists even sold out clubs just by appearing on it. His band included Joe Messina and Jack Brokenshaw, who later became part of the Motown sound. One moment from Soupy's On became priceless. In 1955, jazz trumpet genius Clifford Brown appeared on the show. He died in a car crash just a year later at age 25. That episode might be the only footage of him ever recorded. Years later, Ken Burns used that clip in his jazz documentary, and Soupy had to search through months of old recordings just to find it. Clifford Brown was clean, brilliant, and mostly ignored by the big networks, but Soupy had captured something no one else did. Back in 1953, something else happened. Because of how popular his shows were, Soupy signed a TV contract that paid him over $100,000 a year. That was huge money back then, worth around $1 million today. He was running 3 shows at once and became the highest-paid local TV performer in the country. In October 1953, something unusual started on Channel 7 in Detroit. A man named Milton Suppman, who later became known as Soupy Sales, stood in front of a live camera at WXYZ TV. He had no script, no rehearsals, just a sweater, a grin, and a mind full of chaos. The show was called 12 O'Clock Comics, but it quickly changed into Lunch with Soupy Sales. Within a short time, he was earning $150,000 a year from 3 different shows running on the same station. That was a lot of money for the 1950s. Kids loved it. Grown-ups laughed too. There were no rules. Sometimes he danced the Soupy Shuffle. Sometimes he ran across the street to the Detroit Public Library and interviewed random kids. It didn't feel like television. It felt like real life, and Detroit couldn't get enough. But the magic didn't just come from Soupy. It came from his furry friends. There was White Fang, a huge white paw that only growled, and Blacktooth, a black paw that kissed Soupy off camera. Then came Pookie the lion, who hung out in a window and said weird things like, "Hey, Bubby, want a kiss?" At first, Pookie just whistled. Later, he lip-synced to funny records. All the voices came from Clyde Adler, who ran around behind the scenes, switching characters, and never showed his face, only his forearms. By July 4th, 1955, the show went national. ABC turned it into a Saturday hit, and kids all over the country started watching. Big names like Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., and Tony Curtis showed up and got pies to the face. Sinatra wasn't too cool for it. Sammy Davis Jr. wasn't either. In fact, he kept coming back. The pies weren't just gags anymore. They became something more. Symbols of fun in a world that was getting serious. By then, Soupy had thrown over 20,000 pies in his career. Some say it was even closer to 25,000. Each one had a method. Some were straight to the face. Some landed on the top of the head. Others hit from behind. Once, a frozen pie hit his neck during a live show and dropped him to the ground. From that moment, safety rules were added, but Soupy never stopped. In October 1959, ABC moved him to Los Angeles and kept the show at noon. Soupy added more music, especially jazz. While kids watched him laugh and throw pies, adults noticed the music. Duke Ellington, Charlie Parker, Billie Holiday, Louis Armstrong, and Miles Davis all showed up. Davis came 6 times. Clifford Brown's only known footage came from Soupy's show. Even Ken Burns used that clip later. Jazz clubs in Detroit said business picked up after their musicians appeared on Soupy's stage. It was supposed to be a kids' show. It was turning into something bigger. By 1964, he launched a new show from WNEW-TV in New York. It reached millions. That year, he invented the mouse dance. It was simple, just wiggle your ears. But the craze spread fast. In 1965, fans stood in lines stretching around the block outside NBC studios just to see Soupy dance. His pie count was still climbing. Now he was the highest-rated TV personality in New York. On May 9th, 1965, he showed up on What's My Line as a mystery guest and stumped the entire panel. That same year, he became a regular panelist on the show, staying on for over 100 episodes between 1968 and 1975. Producers said Soupy knew everyone in show business, and his quick answers kept the show alive. It was a side of him many hadn't seen before. Clever, sharp, fast. That same year, in May 1965, Soupy's dance hit The Mouse reached number 76 on the Billboard Hot 100. The album sold 250,000 copies in New York alone before going nationwide. It hit number 66 on the Billboard 200 year-end chart. RCA signed him. Motown followed. In 1969, he released Muck Arty Park, a parody of MacArthur Park. All of it came from his live shows. Denny Randall had seen the energy and wrote the song just for him. Then came 1966. Sinatra visited the show, not alone, but with Sammy Davis Jr. and Trini Lopez. They did a bit called The Waiter. Frank Sinatra, the cool king of Vegas, begged to get pied. What happened next was unforgettable. The Rat Pack and Soupy got into a full-on pie fight. It felt like the Three Stooges had met the kings of cool. Sinatra laughed until his sides hurt. That same year, they re-released Soupy's earlier records from Reprise, the label Sinatra had signed him to back in 1961. Later, in 1965, Soupy performed The Mouse on The Ed Sullivan Show, just before the Beatles came on. Even Ed Sullivan joined in and wiggled his ears. Soupy made at least 3 appearances on that show. In 1965, he was on Hullabaloo with Jack Jones and Roosevelt Grier. It was clear now Soupy wasn't just for kids anymore, but then came the scandal. On January 1st, 1965, Soupy looked into the camera and told kids to sneak into their parents' rooms while they were sleeping and take little green pieces of paper with pictures of guys with beards. He asked them to mail it to him at Channel 5. He said they'd get postcards from Puerto Rico. Some parents laughed. Most didn't. ONEW got flooded with complaints. The FCC got involved. Congress started talking. Sales said he only got a few dollars and some monopoly money. Others said it was more like $80,000. He was suspended for 2 weeks. On January 18th, he returned, and the fans were louder than ever. That wasn't his only stunt. In one 1960s episode, the crew tricked him. At exactly 12:27 p.m., he opened a door expecting a prank. Instead, he saw a naked woman. He froze, but the camera had been switched to show only his shocked face. The prank worked. The audience never saw anything, but Soupy thought his career was over in that one frozen second. In another gag, White Fang misread the letter F as K during an alphabet game. Soupy yelled, "Every time I see F, you see K." The joke was for adults, not kids. Complaints followed, but it also became legendary. Parents caught on. Kids didn't. Soupy just smiled. Then, in 1974, something strange happened. A 19-year-old Navy Seabee named Leon Louis pied his commanding officer during morning formation in front of 700 people. It wasn't a joke to the military. It went to court, and they called Soupy as a witness. He said he'd taken over 19,000 pies and never got hurt. It was comedy, not crime. But the young man still got demoted, fined $400, and restricted for 6 months. By March 1966, the show was canceled, even though it was in 50 markets including Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Networks stopped in-house shows and bought cheaper syndicated ones. Sponsors backed off after the money prank. Soupy disappeared from TV for 2 years. He lived off savings. Then, in 1968, he returned with a new version, this time with tighter rules and more cautious producers. In 1976, he hosted Junior Almost Anything Goes, a Saturday morning game show full of wild stunts. It ran until 1977. Before that, he had tested another game show pilot called Way Out Games. Kids rolled in slime, ran obstacle courses, and laughed. It worked. Soupy fit in perfectly. In 1978, he made a huge comeback with the new Soupy Sales show. It had 65 episodes. One night, Alice Cooper came on. A pie hit him square in the face. Kids cheered. Metal fans stared in disbelief. It was a strange mix, and it worked. By the 1980s, Soupy wasn't just doing slapstick anymore. He acted on The Love Boat and Murder, she wrote. He hosted a radio show on WNBC. He wasn't just for kids. He was turning into a real actor, and yet he still kept the pies coming. Soupy Sales was on TV every day, but the cost was his family. For years, he worked 11 hours a day. He had a noon show for kids and another live comedy show at 11 at night. That left him no time at home. He did this for so long that it broke his marriage. In 1979, after 29 years together, his wife Barbara left him. His sons, Tony and Hunt, barely saw him growing up. They never forgot that. The time he missed couldn't be fixed later. He later admitted those long hours ruined his marriage, wore him out, and tore his family apart. That same year, 1979, Tony Sales was in a car accident so bad that doctors thought he was dead. He was high on cocaine when he crashed into a tree. The stick shift went into his chest. He went into a coma for 8 months. Every day, his girlfriend came and let him smell her perfume. That was all he could feel. He dropped to just 80 pounds. When he woke up, doctors said he wouldn't make it, but he lived. Only one big-name musician came to see him in the hospital. It was David Bowie, and that meant something. While Tony fought his way back, his brother Hunt was lost in heroin. For decades, he stayed hooked. He called himself a professional junkie. Most heroin addicts don't live more than 15 years. He beat that somehow, but it cost him everything. David Bowie got angry during their time in the band Tin Machine. Hunt was too far gone to keep up. Another bandmate, Carlos Alomar, said Hunt's addiction ended the band, even though Bowie had given everything to make it work. It was painful because Hunt's addiction looked a lot like his father's drinking, a curse passed down. Hunt later said that the day he finally quit, everything changed. He said, "I outlived my addiction." And when he started caring again, he felt like the universe opened back up. Soupy himself had battled alcohol hard in the 1970s. That's when his marriage fell apart. It wasn't just work, it was drinking too. In his book, he said the alcohol nearly destroyed him. He was performing non-stop and felt like he had to keep up somehow. But drinking only made things worse. The pressure of staying famous pushed him to the bottle, and the bottle pushed him away from his family. And then his sons walked the same path years later, with cocaine and heroin. The whole family got caught in it. After the divorce, something changed. In 1980, Soupy married again, this time to Trudy Carson, a dancer 20 years younger. It brought a little peace to his life. She stayed with him until the end. Trudy took care of him when his health started breaking down. She helped run his estate, worked with his old manager Janet Oseroff, and made sure over 100 of his shows got played again on Jewish Life TV and Retro TV. That second marriage lasted 29 years too, but this time, it didn't break. Even though Tony and Hunt were angry at their father for missing their childhood, they still found their own success. They became a powerful music duo, one on bass, one on drums. They worked with Iggy Pop, then caught David Bowie's eye. That led to their band Tin Machine from 1988 to 1992. They helped Bowie find a new sound. The band sold 2 million albums, but behind the music, the pain from childhood never left. Soupy had chased fame. His sons chased music, but all three carried the same scars. Then came 1995. Soupy was 69 years old and at the Emmy Awards in New York. As he walked off stage, he fell down some broken stairs at the Copacabana. His leg broke. His left quadriceps tore near the knee. He was in constant pain after that. He sued the Emmy organization and the club. After 3 years in court, he settled the case for $200,000 in 1998. But he wasn't happy. "I'm in terrible pain," he said, and it never got better. After that fall, his health just got worse. The leg never healed right. It got infected. Over and over, the infections spread. Doctors kept doing surgeries, but he was too weak. The pain never stopped. He had to use walking aids. The man who once danced and laughed on TV could barely move. The hospital bills piled up. He stopped performing. Each year, his body gave out a little more. Then came cancer. No one said what kind, but it came after years of other illnesses. In 2009, he entered hospice care in the Bronx. He was 83. He spent his last days at Calvary Hospice, not far from where he once worked in studios full of light and laughter. He died on October 22, 2009, at 9:51 p.m. His old manager, Dave Usher, said his body had been failing for a long time. Soupy had started in Detroit in the 1940s, made people laugh for 60 years, and then passed away quietly, far from the spotlight. In 2001, he wrote a book called Soupy Sales. It told stories most people didn't know. He was the only Jewish kid in Franklinton, North Carolina. Growing up around hate and racism, he joked that the local Ku Klux Klan bought their sheets from his dad's shop. But there was a darker truth. He said he once saw a black man lynched by a mob after a fight with a white theater manager. The man was hanged from a telephone pole in the middle of town. It was something Soupy never forgot. Even with all that in the book, not many people bought it. His fame had faded. In his final years, he barely made any public appearances. One of the last was in 2003. He stood up to take one last pie to the face for old time's sake. But even that was hard. He couldn't stand very long. He was in too much pain. Friends stopped coming by. Most of the time, he was home or in a hospital bed. For someone who once brought so much joy, those final years were silent. He was buried in Kensico Cemetery in Valhalla, New York. His funeral brought together jazz musicians and old TV names. Because back in Detroit, from 1953 to the early 60s, Soupy had used his late-night show to spotlight jazz legends. Miles Davis played on his show 6 times. Duke Ellington, Billie Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald, Charlie Parker all came. Soupy even had the only known video of Clifford Brown playing in 1955. He was a comedian But he preserved history without even trying. Dave Usher, who managed both Soupy and Jazz Records, said Soupy's role in jazz was never truly appreciated. His comedy legacy stayed strong. He took 20,000 pies to the face. He appeared on live TV more than 5,000 times. He inspired Pee Wee Herman and helped shape absurd comedy. One time, in 1965, he told kids to take green paper with pictures of presidents from their parents' wallets and mail it to him. They actually did. He got suspended for 2 weeks, but that was Soupy. He pushed lines and laughed at them. Frank Sinatra, Shirley MacLaine, Tony Curtis, and Judy Garland all took pies with him. He was chaos and charm, and people loved it. Even after his death, the story kept going. On January 25th, 2019, Hunt Sales released his first solo album. He called it Get Your Shit Together, under the name Hunt Sales Memorial. One song, One Day, talked about wanting to see his parents again. He was 68 by then. He had played drums on Lust for Life and helped Bowie reinvent himself, but now it was just his own voice. He made the album in Austin, Texas. He said that town was kinder than the cutthroat world he grew up in. For him, the album was healing. For his father, it was a tribute.